how do you understand the Arthashastra? Now, it is written by a man called Kautilya. People say it is Chanakya, but really the word Chanakya comes to us from later literature, from a play called Mrichakatika, written in the Gupta period. These Arthashastras don't bother with caste at all. Caste is important only in the Dharmashastras. The other Shastras are relatively secular. They're more practical. There are Shastras on how to manage the, Charaka Samhita, which is on the health matters. Shushruta Samhita. These are collections of knowledge about medicine.
After understanding the basics of Shastra literature and also some of the most relevant examples that we all must know, today is the day when we are going to discuss about another important ancient Indian text, and a text which talks about the statecraft. And I'm talking about Arthashastra. Hello everyone, I am Srivastava and you're watching Art and Culture with Devdutt Pattanaik. Now in this particular series, we discuss a lot of important relevant themes related to art, culture and heritage of India, which is not only important for your UPSC examination, for prelims or mains, but also for knowledge in general if you want to know about culture, history, heritage of our country. Now, as you all know that UPSC examination is a very evolving kind of examination. And when I say evolving, by the nature of the questions, you might get some traditional questions in your papers, but also UPSC experiments with a lot of new questions also. Sometimes you will not find them in your traditional textbooks. So always try to look for sources which give you not only fascinating information, but also which can be utilized in your exams perspective, both prelims and mains. Now, coming back to this episode, you must have noticed that we're covering Shastra literature since a few episodes before this. And in this particular episode, we are going to talk about another important text. Now, this text is a very important source also for history. And students studying history would, agree with this. And this is a text which talks about the statecraft. And we are talking about Arthashastra. So welcome Devdutt. Thank you Devdutt, for explaining our students so lucidly about these Shastras in the previous episodes with information sometimes which are not available in the traditional textbooks also. Now Devdutt, before coming to Arthashastra, I would like you to, enlighten us or tell our students about how is it connected to other Shastras, or for example, Manusmriti in particular.
And now, Manusmriti is very famous because Manusmriti is not just a Dharmashastra, it also merges with Arthashastra. Originally, the Arthashastra, again an organized check on politics and economy, was separate. So, Arthashastra and Dharmashastra were separate. Manusmriti brings the two together, which is why over time people forgot the the Arthashastra, and it was only rediscovered in the 20th century in the Mysore when manuscript was found of Kautilya Arthashastra. Otherwise, everybody only read the Manusmriti because all the Arthashastra concepts are found in Manusmriti to a large extent, and that is perhaps the reason people forgot the Arthashastra.
Thank you, Devdutt. That's a good starting point. Now let us also understand, the core of this text. What does this text tell us? What should we understand from Arthashastra? The key important points which every aspirant should know from the perspective of the prelims and the mains examination. So if you can throw light on what does Arthashastra tell us.
So coming to the Arthashastra, again it is a Shastra, so organized knowledge. Organized knowledge of Arthashastra is a question to be asked. Now, how do you understand the Arthashastra? Now, it is written by a man called Kautilya. People say it is Chanakya, but really the word Chanakya comes to us from later literature, from a play called Mrichakatika, written in the Gupta period, from Buddhist literatures like Mahavamsha, again 5th century AD, and from Jain literature, which is 1000 AD, and from Katha Sarit Sagar stories, which are also 10th century AD, which means almost 800 years after the Mauryan period. But it is assumed that it was written during the Mauryan period by Chandragupta. Now this is where it becomes a little, one has to be a little careful. One is not 100% sure whether Arthashastra was written at that time. Definitely during Mauryan times there was some kind of a document on politics and economics. It was probably called Dandaniti or Dharmashastra, or the rule of the law, because the king has the staff and the only one allowed to use violence in order to organize society. Then it became Arthashastra, which is more political economics. It was done by Kautilya, but the Arthashastra that we have here refers to gold coins. Gold coins become popular in India during the Kushana period, that is 100 AD. So the manuscript that we have today is probably around 100 AD. Manusmriti is about 200 AD. So if you want to remember these dates, this is roughly what the latest scholars have been saying. Now, Arthashastra is again organized, and again it talks about the king. Now, how is it organized? First, it tells you how a king should be, what qualities should he have, how he should conduct himself, his education, his daily routine. So his routine every day, every year, and his entire lifetime. So that is very well discussed. Now, Arthashastra is writing in a theoretical way. It is assuming that a king has nothing, then how will he build a kingdom? Although that is never true, right? Everybody, king, either you become a king by fighting a war and defeating a king, or you're born into a royal family. But Kautilya is imagining a situation where you have nothing, and how will you build a king? So he first says, in order to be a king, you need these certain pillars. You cannot be a king unless there are people following you. You need Jana, you need a Samiti or a Sabha, a group of talented people who support you, the ministers. You cannot be a king unless you have an army. You cannot be a king unless you have a land. You cannot be a king unless you have a treasury to play the army. Kosha. The kosha is a treasury with which you manage the army. Then you need fortresses. You need forts. So in order to, where you can protect and defend your kingdom, you also need allies and friends with whom you can work. So all this is necessary if you want to be a king. So think about it even today we need that, right? If you don't have a defense system, if you don't have an army, you don't have a fort, if you don't have people supporting you, you don't have a council of ministers, you don't have money in your bank, the treasury, how can you be a king? So sovereignty is established. Sovereign is, what is the meaning of a sovereign? It means you are answerable to no one. That's a sovereign. So in order to be a sovereign, you need these pillars. Now, once you have all this, you have internal matters and external matters. So that is another chapter. So internal matters, how do you govern internally? So there is this whole description of how the country should be organized. How do you control the forests? How do you control the cultivated land? How do you manage the villages? How do you manage the towns? How do you manage the merchants? How do you manage the mining? And a lot of importance is given to money, because it says the purpose of a king is to either maintain the wealth of the land, grow the wealth of the land, and to prevent its erosion. So growth of wealth is very important. How is wealth grown? Again, very organized, very systematically explained. There is the primary wealth. Primary wealth comes from farming, from animal husbandry, from mining. So how do you manage the farms? How do you manage forests? There are different types of forests are described. Forests where elephants are there, because elephants are the backbone of the economy. There are forests where you have forest produce. There are forests where you can go hunting for animals for pleasure. And then there are sacred groves where nobody is allowed into the forest. So you have this kind of very detailed instructions. What do water management systems, because water is very important for farming. Whoever controls the water bodies, the king is supposed to control the water bodies, and the income which comes from the water bodies goes directly to the king, but then the farmland goes to the people who pay him taxes. So you have forest management, field management, mines are owned by kings who gives licenses to people. That's another source of income for the king. So king is now increasing his treasury by controlling these sources of income. He has to protect the traders, create markets, allow them to travel through highways, and create toll gates where he can collect taxes, but produces a security service so that traveling through his kingdom is safe, which is necessary for prosperous markets from where he can again charge taxes. So now comes you have the primary industry, which is farming and animal husbandry, secondary industry, which is about markets, and you have the minting is important because coins are important. Why are coins important? Because Kautilya says that do not give ministers land as their remuneration, give them cash payment. It allows you to control the people. It's all centrally controlled. Don't give them land. Notice this is different from the system which was followed by the Mughals, who had a Mansabdari system based on land. But what you find in Kautilya is that he doesn't like this land because he says that will lead to division of the country. So you have to control the purse strings, you pay everybody back cash, you appoint courtiers in different places. So that's for the internal management. What about the external management? It is always, now this is the most interesting idea that Arthashastra brings, this idea of Rajamandala. It understands that the king lives, there is a circle of kings that exist. So you are a king, you control your land, and the immediate land you collect rent because it is under your control. A little further down, the land which is far away from you, you collect taxes. After which you have lands far away from your kingdom which you cannot collect taxes, but you can, and you can't protect them also. It's far away from you, so it's not your kingdom. You ask the local king over there to pay you tribute. So you create a tributary state. Now if the king doesn't want to tribute, you fight him. You fight a war with him. If he's too strong to resist you, then he becomes a hostile state, and you then find another king who is hostile to him and be friends with him, because the enemy of an enemy is a friend. So now he is surrounded by, his source of income is his rental income, his tax, where he is duty bound to protect people, and then comes the tributary states, and then the states to whom he gives gifts, because these are friends, these are hostile kings with whom he maintains relations, and therefore he's surrounded by it. And then Kautilya says that you have to always keep a lookout of what's going on in other people's kingdoms. He talks a lot about spies, use of spies a lot, and he's waiting for an opportunity to see if a king in the neighborhood is weak, and the moment it's weak, he says expand your territory. So it's a constantly expansive model of Chanakya, which is why he's got this reputation of being cunning and cruel, because he's always expanding, he's always talking about growth, so that's what makes it an interesting document. So it's very organized. As I said, it talks about the king, it talks about how an individual can become a king, what does he need to become a king, how does he manage the internal affairs, how does he manage the external affairs, how does he manage emergencies, how does he use spies. Organized knowledge is found in Chanakya Arthashastra.
Thank you, Devdutt, for that detailed answers. Now, students will agree with me that there can be so many questions formed from this particular answer, from the perspective of prelims also. Remember, there are a lot of statement questions coming in the examination these days, and also in the mains examination, where you can be asked to write about some of the important elements of this particular text. Now, Devdutt, a curious question which comes to my mind is that how Arthashastra is different from, say, Dharmashastra, which is very much talked about, or other Shastras are different from Dharmashastra. Some element which you want to highlight here.
Now the thing about all these Shastras is, other than the Dharmashastras, the Natyashastra, the Kamashastra, the Kautilya Arthashastra, these Arthashastras don't bother with caste at all. Caste is important only in the Dharmashastras. The other Shastras are relatively secular. They're more practical. Kamashastra is about how to have fun, how to have pleasure. Natyashastra is about how to do good theatre, and it talks about different kinds of people. It doesn't bother about your caste. Arthashastra is about kingship and power and money and how to be successful. It again doesn't bother about caste. Dharmashastra is where caste becomes very, very important, and it talks about the different kinds of varnas and jatis a lot, who should be invited to food, who should be invited to the marriage, all kinds of rules are there. So this is just a broad overview of the many Shastras. There are other many Shastras out there, like Yoga Sutras. Yoga Sutras is a Yoga Shastra. There are Shastras on how to manage the, Charaka Samhita, which is on the health matters. Shushruta Samhita, these are collections of knowledge about medicine. Then there's Ashwa Shastra, about horse management. Gaja Shastra, how to manage elephants. All these are the different Shastras that exist in India. There are on metallurgy. These are many books written on Indian Shastras. This is part of the Indian knowledge traditions. These are different Shastras. We will discuss some of them maybe in a future episode. But for today, we have tried to explain what is a Shastra, how is it different from the Shruti, Smriti, sutra, shloka, these words which are often confusing. When was the Shastra literature created? What are the different kinds of Shastra and what makes them Shastra? The organized nature of Kama-Shastra, Arthashastra, Dharmashastra. There is no such thing as Moksha Shastra, but you can say that the Darshana literatures, the philosophical texts, are really Moksha Shastras because they are in a very organized way explaining the different philosophies. We shall discuss the Darshanas or Darshana Shastras or Moksha Shastras on another episode. Until then, bye bye.
All right, then. That's all from today. Today's episode was based on one of the most important texts in ancient India, not only one of the most important Shastras, but one of the most important source to understand ancient Indian history, and that is Arthashastra. Now, dear students and aspirants, the floor is open to you. If you want any particular question or topic related to art and culture, which we must take and discuss with Devdutt Pattanaik, do write to us. Where can you write? You can email to me at manas.srivastava@indianexpress.com, or you can comment in the box below. We'll take up those questions, queries. We can make a topic out of it and discuss it with Devdutt Pattanaik. Do follow our other initiatives of the UPSC Essentials of the Indian Express, which is a UPSC Essential magazine, daily articles written by experts and our team, quizzes which are very relevant for your prelims examination, whether there are articles on, say, ethics or essay, or we discuss issues in very lucid manner. From the past few months, we've been doing a very special article called Knowledge Nugget, which is getting a lot of good response from you. So do let us know what more you want. Again, if you want to suggest something, please write to me at manas.srivastava@indianexpress.com. That's all from today. And as I always say before going, think smart, work hard, conquer your goal. Bye-bye.